The Toy Box Killer. The horrifying true story of David Parker. Ray, one of the most disturbing and horrifying real-life stories is that of David Parker Ray, also known as the Toy Box Killer. Ray is believed to have kidnapped, tortured, and possibly killed dozens of women in the 1990s, though he was never convicted of any murders due to lack of evidence. What makes this case particularly disturbing is not just the brutality of his crimes, but the sadistic and highly organized manner in which Ray carried out his horrific acts. Ray lived in a small town called Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Behind the facade of an average life, he constructed a nightmare for his victims. He built a soundproof trailer, which he called his toy box, filled with tools and devices specifically designed for torture. Inside this trailer, Ray carried out unspeakable acts of sexual violence and psychological torment. The toy box itself was like something out of a horror movie. It was a mobile chamber of torture, equipped with whips, chains, surgical blades, clamps, saws, needles, and various other devices Ray used to inflict pain and suffering. One of the most disturbing aspects of Ray's method was that he meticulously recorded his torture sessions with audio and video equipment, capturing the terror and agony of his victims. Ray's cruelty extended far beyond physical abuse. He was a master of psychological torture. Before beginning his brutal assaults, Ray would play recordings of his voice for his victims, calmly describing in detail what was about to happen to them. He referred to the women as slaves and told them they were now his property. Many of the women Ray kidnapped were drugged, leaving them disoriented and confused, making it difficult for them to recall their ordeal afterward. One of the most chilling aspects of Ray's crimes was that he did not work alone. His girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, and even his own daughter, Glenda Jean Ray, were allegedly involved in helping him capture and torture women. This added a layer of horror, as it demonstrated the depths of Ray's manipulation and the willingness of those around him to participate in such atrocities. What makes David Parker Ray's crimes even more disturbing is that he was suspected of killing many of his victims, but the bodies were never found. It's believed that Ray may have murdered several women and disposed of their bodies in remote areas, but despite extensive searches, no remains were ever recovered. Investigators have estimated that Ray may have been responsible for as many as 60 deaths, though only a few of his victims ever came forward to testify against him. The case came to light in 1999, when a woman named Cynthia Vigil managed to escape after being held captive by Ray for 3 days. Vigil had been kept chained in the toy box and subjected to horrific torture. She escaped by unlocking her chains when Ray was away, and Hendy had left the keys unattended. Vigil ran naked and bloodied through the desert to a nearby house, where she frantically knocked on the door, begging for help. Her story shocked the small community and led to Ray's arrest. Another survivor, Angelica Montano, later came forward and shared her terrifying ordeal. Like Vigil, Montano had been drugged, tortured, and raped by Ray, but she had been released afterward, her memory hazy from the drugs. Montano initially didn't report the crime because she feared Ray and wasn't sure what had really happened to her, a common experience among Ray's victims. During the trial, the court heard horrifying details of Ray's sadistic methods. The jury was shown his torture devices, the audio recordings he played for his victims, and the diary he kept, meticulously documenting each woman he abducted. Though Ray was convicted of kidnapping and torture, he never admitted to murder, and without physical evidence of bodies, the true extent of his killing spree remains unknown. David Parker. Ray died in 2002 of a heart attack while serving his sentence, taking many of his darkest secrets with him to the grave. His toy box, a symbol of his monstrous cruelty, was dismantled. But the memory of his crimes continues to haunt those who knew him and the survivors who lived through the horror. This case remains one of the most disturbing in American history, not only because of the sheer brutality of the crimes, but because of the meticulous planning and lack of remorse that Ray exhibited. The combination of physical and psychological torment, the involvement of others in his sadistic acts, and the mystery surrounding the fates of so many missing women make this story a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind seemingly normal people.